the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical. Our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission? To fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training Podcast. I'm going to be your host for this episode. My name, we'll go with Bill again. It seems to be consistent. Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicky.
I'm Jennifer.
You are, we are, and we're here, and we've got a guest. We have a guest. He is, I think he's been involved in racing for getting close to 30 years. He's been involved with his company for maybe not quite that long, but let's say 25, 30 years. He is involved with radios and two-way communication for racing, as well as various other motorsport applications that we aren't involved with yet, but we'd like to try. I think he's got equipment on many, if not most, NASCAR teams. He's involved with NASA, SCCA, Mazda, Motorsports, Honda Racing, some place called the U.S. Coast Guard. They might need to have good radios every now and then. And if it's good enough for those guys, it's probably way more than good enough for us. With that, we have Shawn Sampson. Welcome, Shawn.
Hey, guys. Thank you very much for having me on.
Great. Just in case, I'm not the best at my intros, in case somebody's not familiar with you and your background, do you care to give a brief introduction for what you've been up to in the past little bit and how you're involved?
Sure. My name is Shawn Sampson, and I own Sampson Racing Communications. We do auto racing communications. That's probably about the lion's share of what we do, but that industry is huge from, as you said, U.S. Coast Guard, airboating, off-road vehicles, road racing, you name it. We can supply communication systems for that, fire and safety, aviation. If it's allowed working, is basically how I tell folks what I do for a living is in my company, if it's involved in a loud working environment and you need noise cancellation and noise suppression for hearing or from a voice, we offer that, and then we tie it into two-way radios. So that's basically what we do in a nutshell. We give you quality communications in a loud working environment, and for us in the auto racing industry, that's a big part of it.
So is your company the reason that Vicky can't hear me talk because you've set her up with a special system that just blanks out my tone?
Totally selective.
Exactly. I was going to say, if anything, she called and asked to have that cut out.
Well, at least you customize to the client, so that's always good.
Absolutely.
It's very effective, I will say. It's 100% working, and I can say the same thing 50 times, and she'll be like, "I've never heard about that." I'm like, oh, "Okay, great." Anyway, all right, I'm sleeping in the tub again tonight. All right, this podcast is horrible for my back. So, how did your company get started with racing and communications? Because it's kind of a, at the time when you started, there probably wasn't any at least in the amateur racing space, there probably wasn't any, if beyond like a Walmart walkie-talkie or something, and maybe the professionals, if I remember right, were barely getting started. So how did you guys get the idea that this would be something needed?
We went just exactly as you said. We went to Walmart and bought a little cheesy radio and an FRS radio, 0.5 watt unit, and a little headpiece mic, and we tried to install it into helmets. I guarantee you people are still doing that today. I mean, that happens. And I giggle when they call and they say, we spent a bunch of money, but we haven't been able to get it to actually work. I've been there and done that. That's how it started originally. My wife and I were both racing. We didn't have any money. We were racing in a spec series with old RX-7s with 30 car fields, and it was dangerous. And I wanted to be able to communicate with her because I was running, at different spots on the track, and I wanted to make sure she was safe, and I was dealing with my own issues at the track. And so I started trying to put it all together, and one thing led to another. Pretty soon you buy enough parts and pieces and you spend, thousands of dollars. I ended up figuring out how it all worked and getting hold of the manufacturers and getting products made and put together. And then we started talking, my wife and I, and then other people at our track said, well, can you build us a system as well? I want to talk to my wife, or my wife wants to talk to me, or we want to talk car to car. And so I started doing that, and truly was your entry level at a garage building this stuff. And it just morphed from one thing to another. And pretty soon I found myself to the point where I was making enough money that I could probably pull away from what I was doing for a living and do this. And it was all done on a credit card and a shoestring. And it morphed into, a lifestyle of business and being super happy with what I do. I get to make systems, and I'm involved with communications, and I make people happy. At the end of the day, I get so many stories about things that have happened at the track, or a loved one saying, man, I had the ability to communicate with my loved one if there was an accident, or if there was something that was going on, or the person who spends a lot of time, energy, and money over the week to go to the track, to get there, to be on the track and have something silly happen that it could have been a very simple radio call which would have saved him so much energy and effort. And for the money, it's money well spent for your time on the track. And that was years ago when that started becoming to the forefront, when it wasn't available for the amateur racer. And then we made systems that were available financially for the amateur racers. And one thing led to another, and that's what started, and that's how it all began. It's just a wonderful opportunity to talk with racers around the United States, to be involved in it. It's a passion for sure. And that's kind of how it all started, with passion and with a need that the amateur racer needed communications and wanted communications. Now it's a much different marketplace than it was 25 years ago. Now everybody's got it. Back then it was very new. So.
Right. I think you had a story where you had an incident on the track, and it was very comforting to your wife to be able to communicate with you and know that, the car didn't look great, but you were fine, as opposed to worrying the entire time. So.
Yeah, no, in fact, it was my wife actually was involved in a terrible accident, a fiery accident.
Backwards.
And
okay.
And I was on the pit lane. And I saw what happened. I was on the radio with her, and this was way earlier. And people were like, Shawn, how come you're not freaking out? I'm like, well, I'm talking to her right now. She's fine. She's not involved in it. Yeah, it looks horrendous out there, but she's fine. So yeah, I was the guy that was on the pit wall watching it. So it was great. It's a great peace of mind, and I've used that story, obviously a lifetime of stories. But yeah, that was a big part of that.
Yeah, because everybody always thinks about, how's it going to help them win the race, and how's it going to, make them go faster or eliminate a problem or whatever. But, keeping loved ones informed could be even more valuable. So.
Yeah, well, it keeps us all racing, and it gets them involved too. That was the other thing too. I know from a fact that if you get your spouse or your partner or folks involved coming to the track, and you can give them a headset and say, hey, let's talk when I'm on the track, and they've never experienced anything like that, then they're part of the crew, and you get them excited about coming to the track, you're going to have folks who want to come to the track, and that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We just need to have a silencer button on some of our team members, but that's not your problem. That's
education. It doesn't make a difference whether it's entry level or all the way through the top echelons of NASCAR and ALMS. I've seen it all. I literally have seen it all. So. And radio issues are not, I have customers who are, oh my gosh, our radio system wasn't working as well as it did, or it didn't work the way we wanted it to, or blah, blah, blah. And I say, look, just because it doesn't mean that you at the entry level should not have a fantastic working system. I've worked with NASCAR teams, and they've spent oodles of money for me to show up and go through their radio systems and find the very simplest thing that they didn't do correctly, and they've been running their system for years. Having just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of education can help an amateur have great quality communication. They just follow a couple simple little rules.
Well, that sounds like a great topic for a podcast. Maybe we should have a podcast on that at some time, Shawn.
Yes, exactly.
So, do you work on analog or digital systems, or how do you feel between the two?
We sell digital systems, hands down, 90% of the radio systems that are out there. if you call and you're an amateur racer and you're racing a circle track and it's a quarter mile or dirt, half mile track, I'm going to tell you, and our staff is to tell you, you can go analog all day long and you can have good communications if you install it correctly. You can have plenty of communication. If you're in road racing and you want to have communication around every track in the United States, you have to go digital. And most people want digital. And if you've ever dealt with analog, you know what static's about, and static's obnoxious. And it's hard to understand, and you're not really sure what you're hearing through static when it's staticky, versus digital that is a true voice and it's a true packet of information. It doesn't make a difference whether you're at the pit lane or 2.5 miles out over a hill, you're going to hear a voice in your head. That's the difference. And for the money, digital for the money price point is phenomenally good, really good. You don't have to spend a ton of money. Yeah, you don't have to spend a ton of money for quality digital communication. You can spend a bunch. I mean, we'll sell you a Motorola system all day long, but if you said, hey, I'm a new driver and I've got a new team and I want communication, I don't want to go analog and we want to go digital, then we can sell you a system that is a very good quality system that'll have full communication, and you wouldn't know the difference between a Motorola system and an entry-level system.
Okay.
And that's the important part.
So I have a story.
Okay.
So the endurance racing that we do and the road racing that we do, non-circle track, is that we have to deal with the elevations and along a 2-mile track sometimes, or if not a little bit longer. And sometimes we just can't get the distance as we fight the elevations with it. So we always end up having to, able to communicate with our drivers when they come almost in view more so, or closer to where we are. How do we solve that problem?
So on analog or digital, either one of those systems, the answer to your question is very simple. If you're not running a roof mount antenna, you should. If you're running a roof mount antenna, there's something not installed correctly on that roof mount antenna. There's 5 different things you could check. Of those 5 things, one of them will not be correct, and it just needs to be corrected, and you'll have communication. If it's staticky and you're at the far end of the track, that's very typical of analog. If it's digital, you should have communication. So I could tell you without any reservation that if you are racing in the United States on a track, road racing track, doesn't make a difference what track it is, and you have digital communication and it's installed correctly, you will have full communication.
So what would be the 5-ish issues that you would suggest checking?
It's going to be location on where your antenna is and whether you're running in a carbon body or a metal body. You hear the word ground plane on an external antenna. If you have that surface, and its ground plane is the ground of the earth, it's not about putting a strap from your chassis to the base of the antenna. That's not what it's about. And that gets way overused. Ground plane. I'm running a strap. I've read you're supposed to run a strap. It's not that. It's the actual surface. So what happens is if you have a radio antenna and it's mounted on your car, and the surface that radio antenna is pushing out the waves, if it's a metal body or a metal frame or an aluminum frame under the antenna, it'll push the radio waves sideways. If you don't have that, if you had a carbon body, for instance, or you had it in a carbon roof, when you key up the radio, all that energy is just going to go in all different directions around the car. So instead of it going side to side off the car, it just goes into the car, it goes over the car, it goes out from the car, but it doesn't go anywhere. So that would be one of the first things to check, is make sure that surface, the flat surface of the radio waves, can get kicked off. If you're running an external antenna and you are on the pits and you have full communication and you go to the end of the pit lane and you're out on the track and you lose communication, I bet you chances are you could unscrew your antenna from the top of your radio and get the same exact quality communication. You're not completing the circuit to the external antenna. At that point, I would say grab your ducty antenna that came with the radio, put it on your radio, go to your crossbar between your B pillars behind the driver's seat, mount the radio up in there with the antenna sticking up, and run it, and you will have communication, no question. So that would be my suggestion on that. It's always an antenna type issue if you have an external antenna and you don't have communications when you leave the pits. location on where the antenna coax runs is a big deal. Don't put it with electrical. Don't put your harnesses with your energy packet, with your loom coming from your battery or anything like that. Keep your battery and your radio packages away from each other so you're not picking up RF from that. And those are the big ones. And the last thing that I see, and NASCAR teams do this, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is guys get handed an antenna coax from a vendor, and they have no idea, but it comes 14 foot. We cut everyone to length. We ask the customer, what kind of car are you going to put this in? Where are you going to put it? Okay, great. But if you have extra coax, most teams will grab that coax, take a zip tie, zip it up tight, throw it under the driver's seat, throw it up under the dash. Well, all that did was create an antenna loop inside of your car where all the power that's coming from the radio to communicate out is now under your seat, or it's up under your dash, or it's down on the bottom of the pan. I mean, you have to run that clean.
So we have to, I'm sorry. So we just kind of like have to shorten our cord also?
You don't have to. That was my next comment. You can take that coax and run it up a door bar or down a door bar. You can run it in phase with each other like you would do like anything else, but don't loop it into a bundle and zip tie it. It just creates an antenna loop. It's like a magnet. It just gets coiled up in there. All the energy gets lost in it.
That's what we did right there.
No,
it's in a coil.
You wound it around the roll bar. Around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. It just created an antenna. And that happens. And believe me, we will have customers like, no, I didn't do that. And then they'll go look at their car like, oh, well, Bob put the antenna and he did the exact same thing, or he stuck it underneath the seat, or, there's extra coax. So those are just some real easy things to check. And when we get that call, when our tech support gets that call, like we can talk when we're on the pit lane. And as soon as we get on the pits, out of the pits, we can't talk anymore. For us, that's like, this is such an easy one to fix for you guys, because we know exactly what's happening. Your external antenna is not working, period. So.
Okay. Yeah, that absolutely would make sense, because I actually kind of put ours into a coil and zip tied it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just pretty much need to wrap it through the car then and create the car as the antenna.
You can run it up the door bar, down the door bar, around the pillar. I mean, you could put it anywhere you want. Just don't have it looped into a bundle.
That's the issue.
Forms like an inductor core, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and they'll say, well, just unscrew, take off your remote antenna, put your ducky antenna, and see if you get better range. And then they'll say, oh, yeah, we did get better range, but it's not all the way on the track. Okay, so now let's get your external antenna working properly, and you should get communication. Yeah, it might be staticky, but you'll hear if somebody's trying to call you. You'll hear the radio break open, and you'll hear static. You're like, okay, well, I'm on the far end of the track.
See, that might have just solved our problem.
Or not. There may be more.
Well, not, but we have a great start, which is awesome.
That's right.
Yeah. I would say probably the other things that we hear consistently from a tech support is my driver, I can hear the mic open, but he sounds like he's a million miles away and we have to crank the volume up real loud. Well, make sure that you're using a proper mic and make sure that the mic's installed correctly in the driver's helmet as well as on the crew side. Most mics are built so that they are built to be used right up to your lips, because it's noise canceling. It's only going to pick up what's right in front of your mouth. So that's one of the things we hear a lot. And then the other thing we hear is, well, we heat up the radio and we can't talk. And that can be something simple to check is when you're in the pits, when you push the button on the steering wheel or your crew guy pushes his button on his headset, make sure that the radio, actually the transmit light's coming on. And sometimes you'll be like, oh, well, look at that. It's no wonder I'm pushing the button. There's no transmit light even coming on the radio. Something's going on. That's an easy check right in the pits, and you'll know what's happening at that point.
We can probably do all that wrong.
Yeah.
Here's the other one too that's a big one, and it's easy to do, is guys will say, well, I went to the track and my radio system wasn't working. And I say, well, did you try it at home? They say, well, yeah, we tried it in the garage. I say, well, you can try anything you want in the garage, but until somebody gets in a car and physically drives a half mile or a mile away and you do a radio check, you're not going to know whether it works or not. Again, you might as well just have the two radios with the antennas off and try to talk back and forth in the garage. They're going to talk. They'll be able to have enough power to talk without any antenna on. But it's when you drive away. So always when you're doing a radio check and you have the ability to get some distance between it, do it that way, especially when you're putting it in for the first time. That'll help you when you get to the track, so you don't have that to deal with. Especially being new drivers and new teams, that's the last thing you want to deal with. But it inevitably, and I hate to say this, inevitably we'll have teams call like, we're racing this weekend. We want a brand new system. Ship it to the track to us. And I literally go, oh my God, no.
I know.
This is what's going to happen. You're going to get there. You're going to buy all this equipment. You're going to have $1,000 worth of stuff show up. You're going to expect it to work magically, and you're going to throw it in the car, and it's not going to work. And it's not because it's not because it doesn't want to work. It's because it just didn't get installed properly.
And tested, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then once it's tested and figured out, or if you have somebody on the team who's done radios before, fantastic. But if it's a brand new team and you want radio communication, test it before you take to the track. That's my other big kind of sign on the bat sign on the sky with the bat wings is, make sure you test it before you take to the track.
Yeah, I think our issue as our team starts rolling in, we have members that can't be there early on Friday. So sometimes they come in like very early Saturday morning. And it just seems like the electronics are always a thing that we're rushing at the last minute to get all done, so, having that tested and set up before you get to the track is a good start. And then it's a matter of just tweaking it when you get there. Yeah.
And especially if you have multiple drivers, and it's just one less thing to deal with. Have your radio checked, ready to go. Your radio system's working properly. You've tested it. And then, Bob walks up with his helmet. He plugs in and, well, it's not working. And then there's not a big giant fraile like, well, maybe the radio system's not working. Well, you're like, no, I know the system's working. Bob, your helmet's not working. What's going on with your helmet? And you can get it down to that right away, and you don't have the extra anxiety over the whole thing. I hate to say this, but after 30 years of racing, I'm no better than you guys. I mean, honestly, I rush really hard to get to the track. I do what I do. The cobbler shoes kind of scenario. My radio system is put together. I know exactly how it works, but there are times when I get to the track on Saturday morning and I'm ready to go racing. The system's not working, and I've got to track it down. So just because I own a radio system, just because I own and I understand how it all works, I still have to do a little bit of diligent work. I can't just expect it to magically work every single time. You've got to do a little bit of legwork.
So I have a little story. Like my husband, Bill here, is our systems guy. And what happened is that when we originally got into racing, he was very interested in the cars and I was interested in the systems. But we somehow in this process has flipped. So now he does systems and I do cars, which fits our personalities. I like to work with my hands. He's a very highly organized person, almost a savant like. So
it was nice she didn't say idiot this time.
No. So he came up with, he's been going over and went through all these other kind of systems on how to organize the radios. Now, the radios at the end of the track day, when you're trying to clean up and everything, always end up a hot mess. So what he ended up doing this time is he really wanted everybody to have a radio so everybody knows what's going on. So he went and he got a gun case and he cut everything with the chargers in the gun case with the electric strips. So now all he has to do, all the electronics are in there. So now all he has to do is open the gun case. All the chargers are planted inside all this foam that now all he has to do is go in and plug it in, and he can charge all of our devices, all of our aimed units. He can charge up all of our radios along with our Apex Pros are all lined up in there. And he just carries a gun case, which
Love
is
it. Good job, Bill.
I snooped around your website. You've got something I'm jealous of as far as charging multiple radios that may become part of the Garage Heroes and training repertoire. So
really,
yeah,
we're gonna have to talk.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
I thought it was brilliant. I mean, it's a little heavy, but it's got
wheels.
everything in it.
It's on wheels.
You know what, I'm actually good with that gun case idea because I tell customers all the time, we have systems that are in the aluminum case and they're nice and fancy. The first thing that somebody, when they break into the trailer, you know what they steal? That
fancy.
Case.
Yep.
A fancy case, and it's got radios in it, and they know it for a fact. There's going to be headsets and radios, and so every couple months, I'd say 2 or 3 times a month, we get the call that says, "Yeah, our trailer got broken into, and insurance is going to buy us new radios. So here's what we need to get." And inevitably, it's in the aluminum case that it walks away. So if it's a gun case, that might actually, when somebody might look at it, that guy's got guns in his trailer. I really don't want to mess with the guy with guns.
I take my racing serious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, he also ended up shrink wrapping with the food. What is it? The food processor shrink
Vacuum
wrap.
sealer.
He vacuum sealed all of our extra parts into a container so that we could all knot it up. Okay, but anyway, yeah, there was that. I just had to throw that in there because coming up with ways of organizing the radio systems when you leave a track. Now, I know for us is that after our race, there's a lot of people that just have long distances to drive. They're loading up everything. And it's just that always ends up, how do you best solve the problem of keeping the radios in such a way that don't get broken, don't get lost, kind of keep them together. But then, then they have to constantly organize. So there was that kind of situation. So
what we have now, we have bags that have two pockets on either end, so the crew headsets can go on either end.
Mhm.
You drop them in the bag, and the coil cords are with them. And in the middle, you drop your charger and your radios, and you just let it all be in there. It's a soft bag, and it's
Right.
easy to transport. And it makes it simple. That's what we use. That's what I tell customers all the time. You know what? People are like, well, I want the aluminum box. And I kind of dissuade them. I say, you know what? Get the soft bag. It's easy to deal with. You can throw it over your shoulder. It's a strap. You can put your
aluminum boxes walk.
Well, exactly. And they're not easy to carry. Versus this bag is over your shoulder. You walk down to the pit lane. You put a hat in there. You can put some sunblock. You put a couple bottles of water in it. It's with you. You're down there. You're testing. You come back. You've got it all in one area. You're not going to walk down to the pit lane with an aluminum box. But so I kind of a big fan of just telling people, look, just get the bag. It's a crew. It's called the wall bag. Get the crew wall bag. That's your bag. That's your radio bag. You have sunblock. Like I said, you have all your snacks in it. Walk down to the pit wall, you have it, you put it all back and you walk back.
Yeah, I like that. We need to have something like that for our crew helmets, our crew radios.
Headset.
Yeah.
Earmuffs.
Exactly. That makes it simple. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about the IMSA versus NASCAR type connectors?
Okay, IMSA versus NASCAR. So the quality difference is they're the exact same, except that IMSA is a 4-circuit system, and a 4-circuit system means you have separate grounds for your mic and your hearing. NASCAR shares common grounds for the mic and the hearing. The problem with NASCAR is that NASCAR doesn't work with all radios. IMSA will work with all radios. Some of the higher end radios, most of the digitals don't like common grounds shared. And when you plug it in, it just goes to a constant transmit. So you have to run IMSA. We've started pushing IMSA probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and we sell 99% IMSA. We don't really sell the NASCAR unless a guy is, again, at a circle track and he says, I'm running NASCAR and that's what I run. But if a customer calls and he says, I'm going to race Steve's car and I'm flying in from Texas, I'm not sure what system he is, but I want a NASCAR helmet kit. I literally tell him, no, you don't buy a NASCAR helmet kit. You can buy an IMSA helmet kit from us, and you can buy an adapter that'll go from an IMSA to a NASCAR. But if you buy a NASCAR helmet kit, if you own a NASCAR helmet kit and you walk to a track and you're doing radios with another team, and you take your NASCAR helmet kit and you put an adapter on end of it, you plug it into their system, chances are, if it's a good quality radio system or digital, it's not going to work for you. So something to keep in mind, do not buy NASCAR equipment. Buy IMSA. It's used in road racing, period.
Well, that was my next question. Is one better or worse than the other? But
Yeah, only from the
IMSA's
standpoint that
better, right?
Yeah, they both will do the exact same thing. But yes, one is better. One will work 100% of the time. The one that works 100% of the time is IMSA.
Okay.
In fact, we won't even sell the adapter that goes from a NASCAR helmet kit to a IMSA harness, because what I have had happen multiple times is a customer calls on Monday and they are screaming mad because they bought that adapter changer and it didn't work in the radio system they plugged into. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it to me, and it's not worth it for the customer's anguish. If they want to buy that from another vendor and get it delivered to the track on the next day and find out it doesn't work, they can scream at that guy. But if that person had called me, I would have said, buy an IMSA helmet kit and you will work 100% of the time.
So one of the things that we've had discussions about, and the team seems to have different predilections to, is the push to talk button. nobody seems to agree on where it could be or should be. And is there any definite no, or maybe the top few yeses that you like to see? Or
I like the whole mount bracket setup the best, as long as it's installed correctly. There's a coil cord on the bottom, and whether it's a Velcro or a full mount with a bracket, it works the best if you get the coil cord to take up the shock and not pull from the button and not pull from the connector that's in the harness.
Mhm.
So you zip tie it on the column, and you zip tie it up on the one of your spokes on the steering wheel, and the tether pulls on the coil cord, and you'll be fine. Then at that stage, I like the bracket full mount setup. You put it above on your spoke, for me on the left-hand side. You move it off the spoke a little bit. It sits up high as you hold your hands at 10 and 2 position. Your left thumb can reach over easily and hit the button. There's
Right.
room for your finger to slide by. That's where I like it personally. But I've seen him mounted all over the place. I've seen him on roll bars. I've seen him on the NASCAR door bars, on the shifter. I like to talk. So if I had it on the shifter, I'd have to have my hand down there in the middle of a corner. At least I can chit chat on the middle of the corner with my thumb on the button and not think twice about it. I personally like it up on there, but I've seen them all over. Everybody has a little different preference. And I don't think any of them are any better or any worse. I just like the consistency on the whole mount bracket setup. The cars that I run all seem to have that setup like that. It's something I'm used to. And when you're jumping in on multiple cars, you just want to be consistent with that button.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Does it matter? I've seen some systems that list themselves as UHF and some that list themselves as VHF.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a huge difference in the two. VHF is used for aviation, and it's used for marine. It's for line of sight. The radio signal is flat. It literally is a flat signal. It leaves the radio at your hip and goes flat to wherever it's going to be picked up. So you put a hill or a tree or a building in the way, it gets blocked. UHF is a wavelength that is a big bar up and down, up and down. So when it keys up, that wavelength is going up and down, up and down. It has a tendency to go over things, around things, and through things much better than a VHF. Now, the same amount of power it takes to make that wavelength go up and down is the same amount of power it takes to go straight. So VHF will reach farther, but if there's something in the way, it won't go, period. So UHF is a way to go. We don't suggest doing VHF in road racing. It's just not the proper antenna setup. It's not the proper way to use a two-way radio. If you're racing off-road or you're using marine application, if we're outfitting a high-speed boat doing the big runs up and down the coastline on your guys' coastline, that's all VHF. That is a 5-mile handheld, can reach 10 miles, no problem, on a VHF signal. It can't do it on UHF, but that's the difference between the two. So line of sight versus a wavy environment.
Okay. So you kind of switched where I was going, so we're getting a little off a logical path here, but we do a lot of HPDEs because, with being relatively new to racing, there's lots of room for improvement. We're trying to take up some of that room. The one thing that people all are complaining about, and we haven't had a really good solution, is the in-car right seat instructor driver communication without radios. They have these they're kind of earpieces and mouthpieces with this little box that they carry in their hand, but they either don't work, break really often, sound horrible, or are about 6 feet thick inside your helmet, so you feel like you're getting stabbed through the ear with a piece of very hard plastic. And maybe I'm just whiny, but do you have any solutions that would help with that area?
We don't offer those systems that are out there in the marketplace, and there's a reason for it, and exactly what you said, which is they're not built very robustly, and they just don't hold up well. And with that being said, I don't want to sell that. I don't want to have a customer call me 6 months from now and say I bought the system and it doesn't work anymore. That doesn't fly with me.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's not. For an inexpensive type setup like that, there's not. I mean, we sell full rally intercoms, which are really nice, and you put a full helmet, communication system in your helmet, and then you plug it in, and it's working 100% of the time, all the time. But it's not an inexpensive process. A helmet kit with speakers in it's going to be $120.
And it's fixed mounted one time, right?
Yeah.
You're not switching
Yeah,
back and forth.
We have what we call play packs, which work. They can go in and out of helmets pretty quickly and pretty easily, and they're inexpensive. I think a play pack's like $75. It's got speakers that go into it. It's got an IMSA connection on the end of it, and it's got a little boom mic with a foam block on it. It's not for necessarily for high-end use by any means, but it'll get the job done, and it works. But it's definitely not. It's definitely not what I would say a road racer wants to put in their helmet permanently, but it gets the job done. But you're going to plug that into a true intercom that is something we would use in a rally or an off-road application, not to be used with a name brand, little communicator plastic box setup. They don't work like that. It just doesn't. I hate to say it.
Yeah. Well, if you come up with one, let us know. We'd love to have it.
I would love to say, yeah, I've definitely made something that's going to work like that, but it's kind of it's the holy grail, like trying to get it, especially with COVID. There's been a lot of conversations about that. Trying to get that system to work properly. I just tell customers, if you're really interested in doing HPD, if you want to have instructors, if you want to learn, buy a proper helmet kit, put it in your helmet, and it's just part of your kit. You have a IMSA helmet kit in your helmet. We have speakers that'll work great. A true IMSA Flex Boom S9 mic setup will be awesome. Just spend the $120, get in your helmet, you're good to go.
Yeah, we have that. It's just that the coaches don't have the compliant other side because we do the racing in the same helmet. So okay,
right.
All right. So back onto somewhat on our task. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say coaches need to buy those. I mean, honestly, we have lots of coaches who buy that system from us because they get into cars with students who have a proper helmet kit. So if they're truly into coaching and they really want to be good at it, they just need to buy it themselves, and they'll have it, and they'll walk in, they'll plug it into your helmet kit, and you're off and talking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll worry about that. So back to our linear path, which I went non-linear. Just call me Vicky today. When we were at pit race, especially because it was the most recent race, and we did notice the issues there. There's some topography at pit race. I don't know if you're familiar with the track, but
what track? Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh, yeah, Pittsburgh International Pit Race. Wampum, Pennsylvania, I guess.
Yep.
We noticed that, or we think we noticed that the signal was attenuated when we were talking to our drivers from within the garage, which was probably a metal building, versus when we actually ended up just standing outside the entire time. Was that our imagination, or was that our bad installation, or combination of?
Combination of probably a little bit of both. Metal and radio waves don't do well, and the closer you are to metal, when you key up the radio, the worse it's going to be from a crew standpoint. One of the things to keep in mind is when you have that setup and you have a crew member and they are in a metal garage and you're trying to talk to somebody on the racetrack, that's not a good environment to try to. The car might be able to talk to you inside there because the radio waves will go around the walls and come in, but when you're inside there and you're keying up the radio, that's not a good spot at all. Trying to keep that radio so that it's out free and clean and on a hip that is actually kind of pointed. If you put your radio at your back, well, think about the radio wave has to go around your body before it goes forward. If you put it on your hip, it's going straight forward. So keep that in mind when you're doing that. But you'll notice that there are places where communications are tough, and you're like, well, why is that now? Well, I'm standing next to a metal fence. Oh, okay, yeah, that's not a good spot to try to talk to my driver at the far end of the track when I have a metal fence right in front of me that the radio waves have to go through. So that's just education.
That could be part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have pit teams, especially on big tracks. Your NASCAR super speedways where you've got a road racing track that's built into it, and sanctioning bodies, SCCA, NASA, Champ Car, whatever, they'll have radios on their hips, and we do all the communications for those corner workers, and they'll say, yeah, Bob down at turn 2, he can't seem to communicate out. Well, Bob's inside of a framed box that's built for NASCAR with chains and all kinds of nonsense around it, trying to keep the flagger safe, and you're trying to use a two-way radio out of that enclosed box of metal. I mean, that's just a tough environment. Yeah. So it's just an educational experience. But yeah, once you point out to them, like, oh, well, if we put the radio out here on the edge of it, does that work? Oh, shoot, it works great. But yeah, something.
Those Faraday cages, God, they get in the way. Oh, Miss Vicky, your artistic talent.
my artistic talent.
Yes.
Tips for installation.
Yeah.
All right. So on your helmet, so what I end up doing was that the mics were given to us, in the set. So I was doing the YouTube search on how to best install them. What are some of the tips that you found to best install? Because basically what I did was I pulled the foaming back from the helmet and I started hot gluing stuff in there.
Good.
So it actually I actually kind of maybe had to cut a little bit or carve a little bit to make a little bit of room just to kind of zip it up and then have the mic inside the helmet come around. Is that about the right way of doing it?
Vicki, you're 100% correct. Most helmets actually nowadays, they've already got a grooved in area for that boom to fit into.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't suggest is that when you do the install, put the mic inside the helmet. Don't put it behind the foam, even though there's a nice little neat spot for it and it looks like it's in a great spot. It doesn't work like that. You want to have that flex boom with the mic come up to your lips.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the clean communication is. But you can normally on a helmet, like literally we'll take a knife, an X-Acto knife, just put a slot in it and run the mic through the helmet so it comes out into the interior of the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just flex it up to your lips so it's right there. Run it back with hot glue in that ear cup area. There's most helmets have that channel. Take hot glue, lay it in there. Run the speakers into it, and then it depends on if it's a carbon fiber helmet or however you want to do the install. A zip tie that goes up to the D-ring inside the helmet that holds the Y block of the helmet kit. So the only lead pulling down is the IMSA connector you're going to plug into, and it's being pulled on that zip tie tether attached to the D-ring up on the side of your chin. That's a good spot. Go ahead, Vic. I see you.
Yeah, I mean that was zip tie, right? That's easy.
That's what you're missing.
I know. See, because I'm trying to solve problems. Because Jennifer's helmet started falling apart. Now, granted, she's at the end of her rope with that. She's at the end of her, usage of that helmet. But her mic is actually starting to break off a little bit. So, going to have to replace hers. But the zip tie, I didn't even think about that.
There you go.
Yeah.
I know.
It makes it easy.
Yeah, and the other, I think
ahead.
what I seen them do at is I saw a helmet where they actually had it glued on the side of the helmet. What was it, like a little Velcro strip where it holds the pin section that gets plugged into the whole unit.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but it's on the helmet up high, so it's not dangling again, pulling all that wiring out of your helmet again.
Yeah, for endurance racing, most endurance racers want a coil cord, which is perfect. And you just put a tab of Velcro on the back of your helmet or on top, and you zip tie that coil cord at the coily part right up inside the helmet. And then when it comes to the bottom, it stretches without any problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just Velcro around the end of the IMSA connector that's on your helmet, stick it on that tab up top, and it's ready for you when you jump in.
That's where you got to plug into the car.
Yep, exactly. It's easy to grab it, plug it in, and off you go. That's the easiest, simplest way to do that. If you're running a set of earbuds, you can either put it onto the side of your helmet, but one of the things we do, especially with carbon fiber builds, is we take Velcro, simple Velcro, you take the loop side of it, we wrap it around that 3.5 plug that you plug your earbud into that sits on the side of the helmet, it's always exposed, and we stick it up between the helmet and we lock it in between the helmet and the pad. And it's up there tight. It's easy to find. There's no drill. There's no hole. It's in a nice, safe spot. It's always there. You just reach up and plug it in. So you just use a piece of Velcro about 6 inches long, and it lives perfectly right there, and it's safe and it's easy. So
yeah, because
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, because I know the ones that we started out with, they have they're padded circles that fit into the pre-designed holes that are press-ins. You could just press them in, and they kind of have you could pull them out, but they can have Velcro, but they never stick in. They never stay in. So they're always like Jennifer's kind of comes out and like her piece falls out of her ear. And we got to work on your helmet, Jen. Next time I see you, we got to get your helmet.
Yeah. On the speaker side, is it the speaker side?
Yeah.
Or is it? Okay, speakers. Yeah. Speakers
It's actually like the whole Velcro bit that the speaker is supposed to stick to. It's the Velcro pad that the speaker itself sticks to. inside the helmet. You're supposed to press it in there. And of course it doesn't stick because it's fabric, and Velcro on fabric doesn't know. I mean, like adhesive on fabric doesn't always work so well. So trying to glue it in there, it's not sticking, but Jennifer, I need to take your helmet. I'm already just thinking about it. I got to take your helmet after this
Zip
race.
ties.
Zip ties.
Zip ties.
Zip ties and duct.
Zip ties and new duct tape.
There you go. Duct tape will work on anything.
Racer's best friend and WD-40.
That's right.
There you go.
There it is.
Yeah, so speakers are nice. That's become a big deal, and I love speakers. I've run the Stilo helmets for me personally for the last few years since they came out. I like the speakers. I don't like dealing with earbuds. And now that cars have gotten quieter, because I'm not a big fan of loud cars. Like I said, racing rotary RX-7s back in the day, my hearing has definitely been damaged from those things. So I like speakers. Speakers are nice. They're easy. You don't have to deal with earbuds. You can run to the pit lane at the last minute, throw a helmet on. You have to go, oh my gosh, my speakers, my earbuds, I dropped on the way to the pit lane. I've done that before. So big fan of that. And then also balaclavas, wear a head sock. I mean, makes it easy to slide your head in and out. It definitely helps, especially with you girls with your long hair, because that just gets all tied up inside there.
Yeah.
Putting a sock on makes it a lot nicer.
A head sock.
There you go.
Head sock
right.
will help.
So our next question is, what is the relative importance of power versus antenna length? Say 5 watt versus 20 watt, etc.
If your install is done correctly, 5 watt will give you the same range as a 20 watt. Period. It has nothing to do with the amount of power at that stage. A 5 watt will give you every bit of communication in a track, whether you have a 20 or a 5. Doesn't make a dang bit of difference if it's installed correctly. Used to be on analog, you would not get static on a 20 watt. If you're running the backside and your car's, in a hole, and you want to talk to your pit on the 20 watt, you're going to get full communication. It won't be staticky. But when it comes to digital, no difference. It really is a function of the cool factor of having it, not having to deal with charging the radio in the car. That is a nice feature. When I'm doing long stuff, 24, 25-hour races, not waking up 2 o'clock in the morning to deal with swapping out batteries is a big deal. It's something somebody doesn't have to do. The radio is just always powered up. But a 5 watt handheld will do for most amateur racing. Most amateur racing on endurance stuff is 6 to 8 hours, thereabouts, unless it's a big one, a 12 or a 24 type deal, which only happens maybe once or twice a year. Then putting a mobile in the car with powered system is a good way to go. But that's the extent of it. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, I have customers like, I got to have a 45 watt radio because that's what I have to have. I'm like, okay, we'll sell you a 45 watt radio, but you don't. You can use a 5 watt and get the same exact coverage out of it.
Okay. What about the often discussed in dark corners of the paddock, the need for FCC license?
Yeah, that's a huge deal. So that is one of the issues to deal with at the level of all of us. My suggestion is buy radios that come from a company that actually programs it for you, and don't change your stuff. You can get your FCC license. There's not a problem with that. The ability to have the communications with the licensing is a big deal if you're running one track. If you get an intrinsic license where you can travel with it, you can go that direction. That's the other thing you can do. But for the most part, there are frequencies at GMRS, FRS frequencies that you can use, and every frequency has subtones. There are thousands of frequencies that are available that fit within the licensing of an amateur radio user. So you don't have to go by, I mean, I've heard the horror stories. The guy that had a Baofeng radio or XYZ radio, and he programmed his own frequency, and he was talking to the tower at the local airport. I mean, I don't know if those are folklores or what, but it's possible. I mean, definitely possible. You could completely type in whatever you want and go for it. And that is a big issue. And I'd rather not see that. We tend to try to sell radios that don't have that capability, or we program the radios and we lock the channels down so you can't change them.
That sounds idiot proof. We might not even be able to break that one. That sounds like a plan.
Everything's possible. There's the internet these days.
Yeah, that's true. That requires effort though, so we're kind of lazy. So going back to options, Has Bluetooth gotten to where it's useful for endurance racing yet, or no?
Yes and no. So it's a little bit more complicated. It's a little bit more to deal with. We do have teams that we've set up with Bluetooth headsets. So they're people that work on the pit wall, whether they're helmeted or with headsets on, they have full duplex conversation. 4 guys can have a full conversation when the car comes in. They can talk, they can deal with all, but as soon as that race car goes on the track, then it goes back to two-way radio. So no matter what, you're not going to get any distance out of a Bluetooth application.
Right.
It's going to be 100 yards at the most, right? But your crew guys can all run Bluetooth, and they can all be on a private conversation that nobody else can talk to. You can't scan it. You can't do anything. That part's nice. The crew guy can have a two-way radio attached to his same headset that he's Bluetoothing with, and he can talk or he can hear from the driver or the crew chief what's happening. We have systems where literally a Bluetooth module goes into the race car and the driver's helmet set up with a Bluetooth system, so he doesn't have to plug in any point on his helmet. He literally walks up with his Bluetooth hub, puts it into his car. Each driver has a Bluetooth hub that's paired to his helmet. He plugs it in, and now it's working just like it would on a normal setup. But to go through that process, I tell people, look, it's an expensive application for nothing more than just the simplicity aspects of saying that you're wireless to your Bluetooth. Just use a system that plugs in and call it KISS. Keep it simple, stupids, right? It's been working a long time like that, and it works great.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on it. I mean, yeah, if they want it, we'll build it for them, and it's expensive, but we can do that. We have the technology. We do it for fire safety, search and rescue teams. We build this stuff for these guys all the time, and they love it, and it works great. And we do build it for racers, but I kind of look at it like me as a racer who does endurance racing. I don't see the need for it. I'm not going to market something that I don't necessarily believe in. I'm not going to tell a customer like, yes, it's the next best thing, next to sliced bread. It's not for endurance racing, not for your standard setup you plug in that we've been using for years. It works great. So I would say just keep it simple.
Okay.
Then that brings us to the next point, and we hear this a lot, is, oh, well, I want to tie it into my two-way, my cellular phone and have that. Again, it's the same deal. Like it does work. You can get it set up that way. But if you lose a signal and you're trying to make a phone call out and you do want to talk to them and there's an emergency and you got to deal with all that, it's almost like just KIS it, just keep it simple, have it work, plug it in and go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a common theme throughout our conversation today was the services you provide and the help with setup and probably knowing our team troubleshooting after we order stuff. What can you help us and our friends with? I guess pretty much everything, it sounds like.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as communication setups goes, that's. I would just say make sure you go with a reputable company. Whether you use our company or use another company, just go with a reputable company that has good quality customer service and has good reputation at the track. I've had the opportunity to buy from when I first started out. I bought a system and I bought some parts and pieces from a company that's no longer around anymore. But their customer service was yeah, and it never showed up on time. And it doesn't do any good if it shows up on Monday when you needed it for Friday or for the weekend, right? And I believe in that wholeheartedly. Like if a customer needs it, it doesn't do a good if it shows up on Monday. It has to be there, and you have to have customer service along the way. So that would be my take on it. There are good quality systems, and if you want to build a system, you can. If you have somebody who's willing to go through the legwork, but that doesn't mean that he's going to get all the parts and pieces correctly. And then by the time you get done buying this and buying that, and okay, we bought 4 of these, but only one of these works. We got to send this back to Amazon and return it, and all the rest of the things that happen. For the effort, the amount of money you're going to spend, you might as well just buy a package set up, ready to go. You're going to put it in your race car, and it's going to work. And
right.
There's a company that stands behind it. That's where we make our bread and butter every day, is that we don't gouge our customers. We keep it as price sensitive as possible, and we want to make sure that they have what they use. The same system that I'm going to put out in the marketplace, the same exact system that I've used or I have faith in using. I won't offer anything else but that, i.e. the little inexpensive systems that go into helmets between instructors. I won't sell that. It's not going to work for very long. I won't sell the jumpers that go from a NASCAR to an IMSA. They're just things that I've already experienced, and I don't want customers to have to experience that. That's not fair.
Right. So, ladies, do you think we can solve our radio problems now?
Absolutely.
Oh,
I think I figured out quite a bit today to get us to the next level.
Okay.
We have YouTube stuff, and I have it on the website. And if you go to how to install a push to talk, that's probably one of the big things that people destroy. And they're, it's a throwaway object. I mean, honestly, people use them. And then how to install antenna kits correctly, and then custom earbuds are the other ones. There's videos that will show you exactly how to do it. And from years of experience in dealing with it, just watch the videos. That's really all that needs to happen when you do the install, and you'll be 99% better than the NASCAR team, which spent thousands of dollars and has a radio specialist and still can't communicate. And we can run around the track with amateur level equipment and have full communication and be super happy with it. Don't do it at the last minute. Prep it before you go. And in that way, if there is an issue, you've knocked 90% of it out, and you can track it down pretty quick.
You see, this wasn't just talking about an install. This was learning how they work. So that's a little bit more the nuts and bolts of what we needed also.
Yep.
Yeah, that's okay. It's fine. It's how it works, because that's how it works. I mean, that's truly, and there's different antennas that we have. There's a wire antenna we have what's called a phantom antenna, and that people ask what's the difference, and a wire puts it off like a balloon around the car. The phantom goes out like a football off the side. It reaches farther side to side. So there's a reason that one antenna might run more than the other, but knowing why it does makes it a lot easier to buy it. Like, okay, I want as much rain as I want side to side. I don't care if it goes to Mars or not. I want it to go out, to New York and to the Pacific on one radio call. So those are things to pay attention to.
So do you have any products that you would like to discuss that you are
That we didn't cover already, maybe?
that we didn't cover already?
You know what's really cool? I'm glad you asked that, because we have this thing called the race audio, and it goes in line in your helmet kit. It plugs into the same jack that your in-car harness plugs in, and it plugs into your helmet. And in there is a box. It's a box with an audio output, and that audio output is a 3.5, and you can plug that into your GoPro or whatever else you're using. And now all of your two-way communication gets recorded onto the camera live as you're seeing it. It's a great piece, and you don't have to put power to it. You don't have to do anything more than literally plug it in line, plug in the audio jack, and now it gets recorded to the live feed, or to a live feed or a recorded feed. And oh my gosh, it's so much more fun to watch that when you have that recording.
Christmas present.
Yeah, like you're going to wait for Christmas.
That,
Well, see, I don't understand why she's so excited, Shawn, because she never turns the GoPro on, so it won't really matter.
I can never see it. I always think it's on. I'm like techno Amish when it comes to electronics, so I'm still learning.
So Vicky,
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like sometimes.
Oh, yeah. We've all seen the same one. Is it on? Is it on?
so Vicky never
Yeah,
turns
wait,
it on, and Jennifer gets off sequence, so she turns it on when she's leaving and turns it off when she gets in the car.
Still.
And that happens. Jennifer, I'm just as guilty of that, I got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a positioning of it in the car. So I'm just like, is it on? Can you see if it's on? Bill, is it on?
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Yeah.
So, but now they could be wired into the car. Our friends of ours are like, oh, just wired into your car. I'm like, dude, you could do that?
When the car rolls, it immediately starts filming. Those are awesome.
Yeah, we don't have those fancy ones yet.
Oh, those are nice. The other product I could say that's not my product, but I can highly endorse, would be the Garmin. What is it?
Catalyst?
Or whatever. The
Catalyst? Yeah.
We have that.
Okay, that is a phenomenal tool, and 30 years of racing, that tool is. I'm an AIM. I hate to say that. I'm an AIM distributor, and I've been selling those systems for years. But I'm a KISS guy, right? Keep it simple, stupid, and I like simple. And that thing, for money, for what it does and what it offers a driver, phenomenal. So, and our system will tie into that. But the downside to that is if you do audio into that, when you're on the two-way radio and it comes on and says you're driving like an idiot, it goes through the radio and your crew hears it. So just FYI.
Well, we say that automatically, so it's not a big deal.
Right.
Just confirmation.
So, yeah, it's exactly. It's literally the crew like, oh yeah, she's telling you you're lifting too early, or you're going in too late, or whatever, whatever. Okay, great. That's why I need to have my crew telling me back. But yeah, it's a great system. So I'm honestly, at the end of the day, I love what I do, and I love racing, and I love giving people the right information, or at least my experience with the right information. So whether it's my system or another system, or a Garmin product, or anything that gets the amateur racer out having fun, because we all work too hard. We just want to have fun. And I don't want a customer to be upset on Monday because his system didn't work, although he tried to install it at the track on Saturday. I try to dissuade that as much as possible. But so that's kind of my take on it. And having the right equipment, that's the other thing too, is make sure you install it correctly.
That definitely would help. So I've got one question that's not radio and communication related, and is 100% self-serving. Yet,
Okay.
If you were to talk about it, Vicky will hear it. If I talk about it, she has no idea that anything is being conversed about. There's this race that I want to do before 2025 that is at Thunderhill and also has a 25 in it. And perhaps, since you've raced in almost all of them, you might want to describe the race so that my wonderful Miss Vicky will actually listen to the description.
What? Huh?
Yeah, it's a race I love to hate. It's a difficult race, to say the least. It's wonderful. It's extremely at an amateur level. You're never going to get involved with more pro racing at the same level. All the drivers are good. All the cars are well prepped, and all the cars are fast. Even the cars that are slow are well prepped, and they're driven well. But having the ability to drive a car that's whether it's 10 seconds a lap faster than the slowest car, or 20 seconds, that's happening at the track at the same time. So as a racer, not only are you paying attention to what's in front of you, you got to pay attention behind you. You have spotters in your ear the whole time, and it's intense. It's a very intense race, and you don't drive that track at 8/10 in that race. Everything is you're driving from the time you get into the car till you get out. Your 2 hours or whatever your stint is, you're driving the car to your ability with all the traffic. It's a miserable race. 90% of the time it's cold. 90% of the time it's raining. It's not nice very often, and you're exhausted by the end. But every time, and I have done every one but one race, every time I leave the track, I'm exhausted. I'm wiped out. I'm thinking about how I can do it better the next year. And I've done it as a team owner. I've been a racer, and I've been a arrive and drive racer, and I've paid for rides. I've done it all. And at the end of the day, that particular race, for me, and the way that I like to do it is, I don't have the budget to have a pro team show up and cater to me, and I don't want that. But I do want to go have fun at that race. And as a driver, as an amateur driver, it's a great race. And if you can get friends together to go do it, everybody pull their money and their resources, you do it as a team effort, it's a great, great event. And one I highly recommend any amateur is able to get the opportunity to do it, whether you pay for a ride or you decide to get a group of teammates together and everybody pony up and start building the car, start working on the car in the summer. You're going to need that much time to get the car nut and bolted and ready to go. Have things sorted out, ready to go. But it's well worth it. It's a great event, and the track is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal racetrack.
We started building our car this winter, and we are planning on doing it before 2025. So we've got a little bit of lead time, and I'm just trying to pick off everybody's brain what I can do to make this, as much fun. Not really terribly concerned about being successful at our first ever one, but having as much fun and being as prepared as we can for it. So
yeah, I think and you want to go in the best attitude. And if you go in with the best attitude, which is we're going to go and we're going to go run, we're going to bring a proper car that's prepared, and we're going to go and have fun, then you'll have fun for sure. There's absolutely you cannot not go have fun. There's just that much going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it is intense. It truly is an intense event. It's game on from the time you get in the car till you get out, and the team needs to realize that. And as long as everybody has a good attitude about it, it goes for the experience. Most teams do really well. I mean, unless you have a major breakdown or you have an issue where you get some penalties, you're going to be competitive in your group. The cars are pretty well matched in the competitiveness.
Right.
It's and driving at night it's my forte. It's what I like to do. So I think it's the most fun. I mean, where else are you going to race a car at 2:30 in the morning as fast as you can with a bunch of other people doing the same exact thing? It's a pretty neat experience.
On a track covered with mud.
Yeah, and that happens. Like I said, it can be miserable. I mean, we've had snow and totaled the race card in that race. I've been on the top step of the podium. I've been in the second position and third position multiple times. I've had it all. I've had all the experiences there, and I still go back every year, and I'm excited about coming back. So maybe I'm just a complete junkie for that race, but I do love endurance racing, and you guys are learning about it. It's a team sport, and I love that aspect of it. The camaraderie is wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. And the biggest hassle we have is we're slightly farther away than we'd like to be from Thunderhill Raceway, so it's a bit of a trip, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, it is a bit of a trip. Just make it part of the adventure,
Oh, for sure.
We've seen. There was a team of Australians who came over, and they totaled their car in practice on Friday, and they were Kiwis actually, and they had the most fun. They flipped it, and they had the most fun. They didn't care. They just came over. They had a ton. I literally was like, I was so bummed for them. I was more bummed for them than they were. They were like, well, whatever. We wanted to come do it. We all drove the track once or twice. It was great. They can't run the race, but that's okay. And they just hung out and had a good old time. So I keep that in my mind, all the time. People, you'll see teams that are just, put so much energy and effort into it. And like, if you got to keep it lighthearted, at the end of the day, we're taking home plastic trophies at the end of the day. And there are pro teams. There's a lot of pro teams there. There are pro drivers that are prepping for the 24, and they want their driver to get in the car and put some hours in at night. And, those are probably the scarier drivers, honestly. At the end of the day, they're in fast cars. They don't have the experience to be out there. The amateur drivers tend to be better drivers. That's just a reality of the situation. But the fun and the aspects of what it is about racing that race, it's wholeheartedly a great experience.
Yep, that sounds awesome. I would like to acknowledge that I did not make any joke about the Kiwi race car being upside down, since they're from down under. But anyway.
Oh,
What?
Wow. Bump.
Ba-dum-bump. That's right.
Yep. Well, Shawn, thank you. We will find some of your videos that you talked about and link them on the episode so people can find them more easily. That should be great. And we do appreciate you taking your time and helping us figure out what's going on and helping our listeners figure it out. And it was fantastic.
Oh, well, great, you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bill and Derek, thank you guys very much. It was great. And anytime if you have questions or your audience has questions, I just want to make sure you guys get pointed in the right direction. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you buy from us or you have somebody else's systems or you're not having success with what you're working with. Just call and we can walk you through it. It might take something simple like the battery coax, or the coax for the antenna might be something simple like that. Mm-hmm. Or it might be like, that's just not going to work with that system. You need to get X, Y, Z to make this work. But we're here for you. I mean, that's what we do.
I think we've got a couple of hardware issues we're going to have to talk to you about. And that'll be good for you. And we will solve our problems. And hopefully Vicky will hear me on the radio. No, she won't. Anyway.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thanks, you guys. Cheers. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, ladies.
Did you get pictures?
Of what? Yeah, I will. I talked to them already. Okay. So, ladies.
No.
I have a podcast review that came in. It says, Garage Heroes in Training Podcast, an awesome resource, 5 stars, down-to-earth endurance racing talk. I appreciate the effort you guys put into your topics. From Adam Walker, 5'10". I don't know if that's his height or not, but thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Always fun.
Thank you.
There you go. So that was a great episode. We learned a little bit about radios. You guys good to go? You ready to fix Jen's helmet for her now? I
am ready.
Ready.
I know what's going on with the radios. I have a better understanding of how the radio waves work. So that's a good thing to figure out. I'm sitting here just trying to bundle things up, and I probably shouldn't be bundling them up. I need to be spreading them out through the car.
We've got some hardware issues too. We got to change our hardware.
Yeah, the car is the radio.
It's the antenna.
Not just the antenna.
Yeah. Yep, we'll get there. Mm-hmm. All right, ladies, thank you for coming on the podcast. We'll probably have a Dominating with Dawson coming up. Who knows what it could be? It's always fun, though.
Oh, I love Dominating with Dawson.
All right. Have a great night, ladies.
We should get a shirt.
We should get a shirt. A Dominating with Dawson
A
shirt.
Dominating with
Ooh.
Dawson shirt.
Handing Dominating with Dawson shirts out.
That's right. We don't have just stickers, people. That's right. We have swag. So, all right, ladies, thank you again. Have a great night. We'll talk to you later.
Dominating with Dawson.
Mr. Ben Dawson of Dominating with Dawson.
Hello,
Welcome.
I brought my brain.
There we go.
What's left?
And we have Miss Vicky.
Hello.
Hey,
So every now and then we try and do like a 101 thing for all our friends and soon to be friend to drive on the track. And one of the things that has come to our attention that some people don't know innately from the womb is the pit in and pit out process and procedures at a track. Not only do they generically have a process, but they actually vary from track to track and place to place. So there's a lot of complications above and beyond. So let's try and go through what a typical pit in, pit out process would be, and then talk about some of the variables that we've seen at different tracks.
okay. So if you're already on the track and it's time to pit in, usually you're in the last corner or two. It's ideal that you want to get on sort of the same side as the pit entrance of the track, even if it's not the ideal line.
Right.
It's also good to signal with your hand. I don't know how universal this is, but at least in this region, at a driver education event, not necessarily a race, but if I have a chance to and can get my hand out past the window, and I'll try to do something to let people know I'm slowing down, even if it's waving in the car. But typically at a DE, the signal is to stick your left arm out the window with a raised fist, very clearly, very visibly, not like right by the side of the door, but big old sign. I'm doing it like anybody can see, but big old sign with your hand to let people behind you know that you're going to be pulling slightly offline and going a lot slower to be able to make the pit entrance. So they know to kind of work their way around you. And typically at a DE, that's part of that procedure also includes the cars that may be coming by are going to pass you. Like once you've sort of gotten into that mode where you're pulling into the pits and you're going to be a little bit offline, you need to stay committed to that. You can't change your mind and go, never mind, I'm going to stay out. Like once you said, I'm going to go in the pits, there are going to be people coming around you.
Right.
So that's you can't decommit to that. Like once you've already committed to going into the pits with your actions in your hand, going in the pits, even if you decide you want to go back out, you still need to go down to the people who are running the pit exit and tell them what you did, or tell them like, hey, I just came in, but I want to go back out. And even if you want some space, they'll handle that. They'll manage it. Even if you goofed, they don't care. They'll send you right back out.
Right.
But you can't. So that's getting back into the pits. And typically, if you're rolling back into the paddock, you're going to go through a hot pit area, and you're probably going to drive past somebody who's waving a flag and a microphone telling you where to go. And they'll look at you if you want to stop and get your car looked at. They'll take a look at your car if you have any reason to think that there's something to look at. But for the most part, you're going to roll up to them. They'll wave you by, and you can drive very slowly, like walking speed, back to where your trailer or your stuff is.
So in the paddock, you don't just hammer down, Miss Vicky? Is that what Ben tried to say?
Absolutely. You don't hammer the paddock. I learned that.
My kids are there. Yeah, my kids, your dogs, everybody's there. So that's a place where you
that
go
was an
ridiculous
early on
well.
mistake for me. I have not done that. That was a long time ago.
Did you do it at NJMP? Because they'll pull you over and give you a ticket, won't they?
Yeah.
Like, don't the cops run that or something?
Yeah.
No.
State troopers.
Okay.
Yes. State troopers are in the paddock at NJMP.
Oh, are they?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I've never been.
So Vicky was driving on the track, and she got used to going very fast. So she got off the track and was going through the paddock, and she was
zoom.
She was going
not
slowly.
super fast, but I was faster than I should have been.
Yeah, your sense of speed after
like
your first time on track is totally out of proportion.
That was like my first year, I think, maybe.
Yeah, first and second. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many DE drivers get tickets on their way home from their first or second DEs? They have no idea how fast they're going.
How many people have actually come off the track from a DE and actually try to apex the turns on the highway?
Almost all.
I mean,
you're still in mode.
Oh, yeah. I hit every apex I can, whether I'm doing today or any day.
It's like going to a Bruce Lee movie and walking out. So
I also left foot brake every day.
Every day.
On the road. I'm driving a buddy's automatic, and I have left foot brake thing all the time. It's great.
It's a great plan.
Absolutely.
All right. So pit out. Miss Vicky, you want to walk this one, or you want Ben to do it again?
Ben.
Out from the pit.
Okay.
Ben.
All right. So somebody goes, hey, third call for the green group. So it's time to roll up to where you go from where your truck or trailer or whatever it is. You're strapped in. You got your helmet on. I like to have all that stuff done at my spot. I don't want to go down to the grid area where everybody lines up to go on track and then put my stuff on. Like before I even move the car, I want to have all my safety gear stuff on. It's also a good time to check if there's something you need to hand to a grid worker to prove that you've been to classroom. If it's a DE, make sure you got that squared away. Don't get yourself all belted in to go like, oh, it's in my pocket under my lap belt. You got to completely get unbelted to get the thing. So anyway, be cognizant of any extra things you need to be taking down there with you. And then so you're going to leave your area, go to the place where you can get into the usually there's a hot pit, and there's still what's the area?
Grid.
Next to the grid, yeah. So there's a grid area. Often it's another kind of pit road next to the hot pit, or it might be a whole separate area. But they'll tell you that. They'll let you know where that's going to be, where to collect for your group to go out on track. They'll let you know where that's going to be in the drivers' meeting, which you've been to, because you're smart. So anyway. At that point, you're going to get to where you're going to grid up. They'll line you up. If you showed up early, it might be one of the first people. They may end up making two lanes or something like that. So depending on what your goals are for the session, and if you've been in this group for a while and you think, hey, I'd like to go out first just to make sure I don't get held up by anybody, you might want to make sure the first time you hear a first call for the green group, be ready early and head down there. Or it might be a group that you're less comfortable with. You might want to just say, hey, I want to be the last car out. You can just sit there at your pit space until you see the group start to roll out, then just drive straight up to the back of that group as they roll out, and they'll just wave you out. And that way you're at the back of the group as you're kind of worried about getting run over. You want to spend some extra time working on something without a bunch of traffic around you. So that's the idea. You go to that grid point, they're going to start waving your group onto the track. So you'll slowly roll past the grid worker. They'll be kind of waving you the whole time. It's always good to acknowledge them with a little wave or something like that. Just one more communication from you that you're not crazy before you go on the track.
Yep.
One more humanity check before you're rolling the track. I just always try to wave at everybody who's looking at me. But then you're gonna roll onto the course. Typically, there's a blend line, which is a line that you're not supposed to cross. So you stay on the pit side of that blend line until it's over. Then you can safely enter the flow of traffic. Usually if it's a DE or something like that, so if it's the first session of the weekend, a lot of times they'll make the first entire lap until the group has all been by one time. They'll make that a yellow flag lap to let everybody have a chance to familiarize themselves with the location of the corner workers and that sort of thing. And then they'll go green. And just the track conditions in general, get a little heat into their tires and brakes. Also, the first session of a DE is just generally a good time to warm up. That's also usually the first session where I'm gonna try to put my blinker on, or like do the dumb stuff. So it's always good to take your track re-entry a little bit easy. But then eventually they'll let you know how it's gonna go. They'll let you know what to look for to know that the track goes hot. And when the track goes hot, you're on. You're free to drive fast, whether it's a race or you get a green flag or a DE, something like that. But once the track goes hot, you drive until they let you know it's time to come in.
Absolutely. Miss Vicky, do we leave anything out?
Sounds good to me.
I'm sure I left something out.
Pit lane speed.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was just thinking in DE mode where you're really just kind of rolling from the paddock and then line it up. But yeah, also pit lane speed. If you're at a race event like Lemons or somewhere else, they'll be pretty clear with you about in the pit lane. We're not talking about the paddock area, but in the pit lane where you're going to roll up and do your fueling and pit and that sort of thing. They'll tell you if it's 35 or something like that, and they'll sort of give you in general. It should be, about 4,500 RPM in a second. They'll kind of give you a range and
right.
Sort of something to expect. And also it's good to sort of just kind of verify it if you have a chance to try to figure it out when you're rolling next to a street vehicle or something like that, to try to figure out what it really is so that you don't run afoul. But for the most part, in those sort of settings, they're not going to be putting a radar gun on everybody. But if you're a big outlier, if you're obviously messing up, they're going to call you down and give you a penalty.
Right. You just don't want to endanger anybody on the pit. So
right.
Got to be in control.
But, yeah. So you want to know, you want to have an idea of what if you don't have a speedometer in the car and you need to obey a speed limit, it's a good idea to understand it's about this many RPM in whatever gear.
Yep. All right.
It's safe.
Yep.
Play nice with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So they play nice with you. All
That's
right.
right.
So when you go to the track.
Yeah. Don't be that guy.
Or girl.
And I just want to say, I would always try to over signal when I have to slow down, whether it's for a pit or if there's a caution or something like that. So I'm always the guy waving in the car to let people know I'm slowing down, or I'm coming to the pits. But the idea behind doing that is not because I'm some sort of Boy Scout or I'm obsessed with following the rules. I'm obsessed with not having somebody run over me from behind. So you may be aware that you saw the checkered flag for your DE section, but that guy in the Viper going 180 behind me, he was so excited looking at the speedometer, he didn't look at that corner station that was showing the flag that it was time to come in. There's always going to be a chance that somebody's just in over their head, not paying attention. I didn't see that flag, and their next indicator that, oh, that guy's waving, I should slow down. You know what I mean? So I just always try to reiterate the fact when we talk about this sort of thing that you're signaling you're slowing down for whatever reason. Caution coming in the pits is about self-preservation, keeping you and your car safe more than anything else.
Agreed. This is supposed to be fun.
That's the end of my TED talk on that. Sorry, hate to get all serious.
No problem. All right. Dominated with Dawson.
We did
End of stories. Thanks.